Imagine waking up to the news that the world's largest democracy and the world's largest economy are suddenly at odds. New sanctions, new rules, new tensions. This is not a distant scenario anymore. It's unfolding right now. As former U.S. President Donald Trump reasserts his influence in 2025, India finds itself in a geopolitical storm it cannot afford to ignore.
Welcome to Power Shift 2025, where U.S.-India relations are being reshaped before our eyes. Trump's fresh sanctions package, aimed at recalibrating global trade and technology flows, is shaking up the corridors of power in New Delhi. For decades, India and the United States have nurtured a complex yet steadily warming partnership. From defense deals to tech collaborations, the two nations have often seen themselves as strategic allies in the Indo-Pacific. But as Trump's policies return with a harder edge, tariffs, tech restrictions, and new conditionalities, India is facing one of its toughest hours on the global stage. In this script, we explore what these sanctions mean, why they're happening now, and how India can respond to maintain its growth, autonomy, and credibility. Over the past 20 years, the U.S.-India partnership has evolved from wary cooperation to strategic alignment. Bilateral trade crossed $190 billion by the early 2020s, with both countries leaning on each other for markets, technology, and investment. Defense cooperation agreements, semiconductor supply chains, and joint military exercises signaled a deepening relationship. But Trump's earlier term already showed his preference for a transactional approach. He believed allies should earn their benefits through reciprocal tariffs, stricter visa policies, and by buying more American goods. In 2025, this approach is back, only sharper.
The new measures reportedly focus on three areas. First, technology exports and semiconductors, restricting high-end chips and AI technology exports to India unless strict safeguards are met. Second, trade tariffs and energy, raising tariffs on certain Indian goods, from steel and pharmaceuticals to renewable energy components, to push American manufacturing. Third, defense and strategic autonomy, limiting access to certain U.S. defense systems unless India aligns more clearly with U.S.
positions on China and Russia. These aren't blanket bans, but targeted restrictions designed to pressure India into policy changes, especially on issues like oil imports from sanctioned countries, data localization, and its non-aligned foreign policy stance. Trump's team argues that India has grown its economic clout while under-reciprocating on trade concessions. The sanctions also serve a domestic political purpose, appealing to American workers worried about outsourcing, manufacturing jobs, and technological competition. Moreover, 2025 is a year of intense competition in the Indo-Pacific. By tightening the screws on India, Washington signals to Beijing and Moscow that it is serious about controlling tech flows and defense alignments.
India's economy, projected to be among the world's top 3 by 2030, has relied heavily on open trade routes, affordable technology imports, and diversified oil supplies. The new sanctions threaten higher costs for critical imports like semiconductors and defense parts. Delayed infrastructure projects if renewable energy components get pricier, and strain on the rupee and equity markets as foreign investors reevaluate risks. For Indian businesses, especially in the IT and manufacturing sectors, the chilling effect of sanctions could mean lost contracts, reduced competitiveness, and slowed innovation. The sanctions also create a diplomatic puzzle. India has worked hard to position itself as a bridge between the West and the global South. A public clash with Washington risks alienating European partners, undermining India's leadership in multilateral forums, and giving China a narrative victory. However, India also knows it cannot simply yield to Washington's every demand. It must preserve strategic autonomy. India's playbook could include diversifying technology sources by tapping South Korea, Japan, and domestic production for advanced chips and defense technology.
It could strengthen South-South cooperation by building trade blocs with ASEAN, Africa, and Latin America to offset Western restrictions. It could fast-track Make in India for critical technologies and green energy. And it could leverage its market size to negotiate carve-outs, exemptions, or special trade lanes with the U.S. The bigger question is philosophical. Should India lean more heavily into Western alliances or chart an even more independent path? The sanctions debate could push India to double down on self-reliance, invest aggressively in research and development, and cultivate new security partners, from France to Australia, to balance U.S. pressure. This U.S.-India tension isn't happening in a vacuum. Other countries are watching. If Washington can sanction a large democracy like India for strategic non-alignment, smaller nations may fear similar treatment. This could accelerate the trend of de-dollarization, alternative payment systems, and regional supply chains. Conversely, if India successfully negotiates relief or exemptions, it sets a precedent for middle powers to assert themselves against superpowers. We are living through a new chapter of geopolitics, one where traditional alliances no longer guarantee stability, and economic weapons are as potent as military ones. Trump's fresh sanctions on India in 2025 are more than just a policy move. They're a stress test for the global order. India's tough hour is also an opportunity to innovate, diversify, and reimagine its role in a rapidly changing world. Will New Delhi rise to the challenge, or will it buckle under U.S. pressure? The coming months will define not only U.S.-India relations, but also the balance of power in the Indo-Pacific and beyond. The power shift of 2025 is just beginning, and how India navigates it could rewrite the global playbook for